some more experimental filming. We are on Psychiana, Lesson 5, Part 2. And in the previous parts, he had us relax every muscle in our body before you go to sleep at night. So you tighten your feet muscles, you tighten your legs, every muscle, you tighten and relax. You're in that relaxed state, and then you do your affirmations. First one being, I believe in the power of the living God. Second one being, I am finding the power of the living God. Then next, my thoughts are part of the living God. And then I am finding the power of the living God law. And he asks us when we do this and our eyes are closed to look for the light. There's a light. When you close your eyes, there's a light spot. And so it says, let me explain here a little bit why I ask you to center your vision on a light area which everyone sees when their eyes are closed and when they are looking through their eyelids, so to speak. We have seen that thoughts are spiritual unseen things. We have also seen that there is invisible life throughout the entire universe, millions of light years away, and yet so close to you and to me that we could not get away from this invisible life, even if we wanted to. Now, if a thought is an invisible spiritual thing and a part of the invisible spiritual life, which it is, then do you not see that through your thought realm you will be able to contact this invisible life spirit that I am talking about? Now, once more, if this theory is correct, that the greatest forces in the world are spiritual forces, are unseen forces, and if it be a fact that nothing was created in the material form without first being created in the thought realm, then do you not see that by building your future in your thought realm, you are actually building it in a realm which will shortly change into the material realm? This is absolutely a scientific fact and scientific spiritual law. This is God law. I do not think I have ever seen the power of thought more strongly manifested. Okay, so then he goes into a movie he went to see in Spokane, Washington, and went outside, and then kind of those things were happening. Okay. All those people who fainted knew perfectly well that they were looking at a picture. So people fainted outside of a movie. And yet the thought realm and the thoughts entering it are sufficient to absolutely lay their bodies on the cold on the floor. If you receive a telegram informing you that a certain loved one has been found guilty of... Okay, so you receive some bad news and then you turn white. Your physical body is absolutely changed. So it's a thought, and it absolutely changes your physical reality. Okay, you get the news that something's happened to someone else, and oh my God, it devastates you, right? Because your own thoughts. Okay, the things doesn't change or not change. It's your thought that does it. Okay, so yes, it was through the medium of your thought realm that this physical effect was caused. You probably became quite ill and had to go to bed as a result of receiving that news. But the news may have been untrue as far as you know, and someone may be playing a practical joke on you. And that's with anything going on in the world right now. Is it true? You don't know. Is it happening to you in your room you're in right now? Is it really happening to you? Then why are you like, oh, wrecked my day? Because of what they said is happening to them somewhere else. Okay. You have positively no way of knowing whether your friend or family really experienced this, or with world news, you don't really know whether it's really happening. I don't know if this is pointed at me or not. I'm going to point it down a little bit. Who knows? I'm sure you can still hear me. Can you hear me? I'm calling out to the living God. You have positively no way of knowing whether this happened. Okay, so then I say it is a fact that the thought realm is by far the most important realm. Probably the future will disclose this fact that it is the only realm there is. Yeah, we live in a simulation. The material realm being but a very minor and unimportant part of it. Now, before we go into our study of the marvelous realm of astronomy, let me impress upon you once more the importance of following me earnestly and closely in these studies. I'm going to show you absolutely the existence of the God law. And I'm going to show you that it can be used in the life of every individual who is earnest enough for success and happiness to use it. So keep busy on this course of instruction and don't be afraid to do the things I ask you to do. They are very simple little things and yet are fraught with dynamic power. And it is the actual doing of these things that brings the material results. There is no question that these lessons are interesting from a literary standpoint, but it will take more than that to obtain anything in the spiritual realm. It will take an active desire, an active will, and an active intelligence, which means business before actual material results will be seen. But the little effort required is very much worthwhile, and I think you will agree with me that if you desire the good things of life, you certainly should be in earnest to at least put yourself so in tune with the spiritual law that these good things can actually come to you. For I want to repeat here that there are positively no limitations of any sort or kind to the power of the creative life spirit of God law responsible for this universe. Our trip into this realm will be very interesting and highly enlightening. I shall give you facts and figures that your mind cannot possibly grasp, but you will be able to glean from these facts and figures something of the magnitude of the God law, which is even now, as you read this, waiting to be applied in your life for the purpose of bringing into manifestation for you and yours those things which are needed in order that you be happy, so you feel content, you feel successful, and you create physical things in your world because we project our physical reality. And of course, this was written long before people started talking. Well, there's lots of people talking about shifting realities and parallel realities and quantum, but the Mandela effect. So this is my only reason for showing you a few marvels of the skies, and truly wonderful marvels they are. You must never attempt to tell me that the creative intelligence which was responsible for the vastness of yonder heavens and its millions and perhaps billions of stars, planets, satellites, etc., is not able to bring into your little life the things you need. For compared with that starry vault with its celestial treasures, you and I are mighty small fry, brother and sister. And yet we are really greater than them all. It's funny, I heard something today about the stars, said, what if the stars are just holes poked in our container so we can breathe? You know how like you catch a grasshopper or something when you're a kid and you put in plastic and you poke holes in the top? The stars might just be holes for us to breathe through. I thought that was really interesting and funny and, enlightening. For those marvels are all perfectly inanimate. They possess no intelligence of their own. They cannot think. They cannot create. They can only revolve in their orbit in accordance with the creative law which placed them there and which ordained their actions since the beginning of time. They do, however, give us a faint glimmer, perhaps, of the very magnitude of both creation and the Creator. And this magnitude should be enough to make you and me wonder what it's all about. Remember here, however, that throughout all this marvelous interstellar space and surrounding all these mighty suns and stars and planets, there is, like a belt of living electricity, the famous cosmic ray. Don't forget that as I paint you this picture of the starry heavens and take you on a little trip through that realm, don't forget that the existence of these rays is an absolute proven fact. As we travel together through this marvelous realm of the heavens, you will see how foolish was the old Christian idea of both God and the heavens. In olden days, the heavens were supposed to be a solid dome with light suspended from it. This solid dome had windows in it. When it rained, God opened the windows of heaven and let the waters through. This is the method we were told. I never heard that one. He used when he suddenly discovered that he had made a mistake when he created man and drowned them all by a flood, leaving only one man and a few animals, right? These good old Christians believed that the sun, which they alluded to as the greater light, and which was hung in the heaven to light this earth in the daytime, was the only sun in existence. They then told us that their good book said that the moon, the lesser light, was put up there hanging in the sky to give us light at night. They told us also that the earth had 4 corners and was flat. I guess that's really old Christianity. They told us that over the earth was an immense body of water, which water it was that came down from God, opened the windows of heaven, or decided to drown the inhabitants from off the face of the earth. I mention these facts here only to show you how ideas of God change. No idea of God can ever be a permanent and lasting idea, for the human race is evolving from its past into its glorious future. There never was any fall of man in the accepted sense of the word. Quite the contrary, there has been a steady rise of man. At the end is certainly not yet. Right. And the end. So we're not, it's not the end. Okay, for only now are men and women beginning to get a faint glimpse of the mighty power of this creative spirit, and that they can use this God law for themselves. Only now are many of the good Christians beginning to suspect that they were being accepted as gospel truths. It is no more than fable and allegory. It has taken a long time for that knowledge to break upon them, and it has not yet broken to the full. But they are suspecting it. They see this and other works going all over the world, and they see reason and sense and results in them. And they begin to analyze their story a little. I think it's safe in passing to say that if those teaching this fall of man and resurrection and ascension story would analyze it 1/10 as well as they pick flaws in the arguments against it, it would not last 12 months. This will not do, however. They are right, and everyone else is wrong. If you don't find salvation their way, you will never find it. Absolutely untrue, right? Let me leave another thought with you here, student. And let this thought take hold of you and grip you. If you will do that. Whew. This thought is right in line with our studies and will give you a lot of comfort, as it has given me comfort. Here is the thought. If the God law is responsible for a man's existence, it is also responsible for his actions and for everything else that happens to him. So that same creative power that created everything, that God law, that quantum physics true law, is available to you, that same one that created everything. Okay, think that over carefully. As I hinted a few lessons back, this great God law brought you into being. It did it all on its own. It required none to help, and it did a perfect job. Now, that being the case, the God law equipped you as you are equipped, and that also being the case. This God law is entirely responsible for you and your present and your future. Don't forget that. I shall come to it again. Just here, however, let me leave the thought that this mighty God law is able and willing to do, and should normally do that. More of this later, however, for I want to take you with me now on a little trip through the heavens, and when you return, you will probably have a far different conception of the God law than you have had previous to your beginnings of your studies with me. Instead of this earth being the entire creation, and instead of the heavens being a solid inverted bowl with water on the other side of it, we find that this earth is but one of the series of planets which is revolving around the sun. The ancients told us that the sun revolved around the earth because they said Joshua commanded the sun to stand still, and therefore the sun must move around the earth, and so they held. Science, however, has effectively proven that's not the case. Many of the world's heroes, however, were put to death and tortured by those professing to be God's agents. For stating that the earth moved around the sun, which it does, remember Galileo and Copernicus, and how they were tortured for their absolute scientific findings, which are now proven to be boundlessly correct. They were right, however, even though their theories were antagonistic to supernaturally revealed religion. And all of this stuff about things being supernatural, this is natural God law. Magic is natural. So all the persecution that the church did on magic, that's actually natural law. If you were to take an orange and stick in it several toothpicks around the diameter, and at the end of each toothpick stick a pea, and then revolve the whole on its axis, you would have a picture of this earth in comparison to this one sun of ours. If you look up into the heavens, however, you would find there are not only a few other suns, but over 20 million of them, and each sun probably the center of a planetary system as is ours. So this is like in parallel dimensions too, right? This is eternal. It is immense. It isn't as much as a grain of sand on the seashore when compared with the immense distances which are known to exist in the heavens. Every single star you see is a sun. Oh, well then, there you go. And the light from many of them took millions of years to even reach this old globe of ours. And you must remember that light travels at the rate of 186,000 miles a second. So try to convince, if you can, which you can't, but try, of a distance so great that the light from that star traveling at the rate of 186,000 miles a second took millions of light years to reach this earth. Then remember that a light year is the distance a ray of light traveling at this rate of 186,000 miles a second could cover in 1 year. Such distances as that are inconceivable to you. Then why are you yammering about it? Then again, when looking up into our solar system, we are apt to make the mistake that it is the only solar system there is. But this is also not a fact. For even as far as the mightiest telescope will reach, we see millions of such suns. And then, when a more powerful telescope is manufactured, we find still more suns, millions of them, beyond those we saw before, and so on through this immense canopy of heaven. Shall we spend a few minutes examining this sun of ours? Then let us remember that there are, in yon starry vault, many millions of such suns, many times as large as ours. Then one even faintly begins to realize the fact that there is a controlling law or intelligence behind such a stupendous scheme of creation. It makes one wonder certainly what can happen to the human life fortunate enough to find and use the law responsible for such a vast creation. Our sun is a sphere of fire. The flames from it are leaping into space for a distance of 150,000 miles in places. This is 5 times the circumference of the earth. Can you imagine such a creation as that? And yet it was created for your benefit. It was created to make life possible for you. And realize that some intelligence or law made this remarkable body of fire to protect you and make it possible for you to live. For you could not exist 1 minute were there no sun in yonder heavens. Not even a minute? This sun of ours is approximately 1.25 million times as big as this earth in volume. If you take the 8 planets of which this earth of ours is only one and put them all together, the sun would outweigh them all about 750 times. Imagine such a globe of fire as that is. The circumference around the sun is about 2.5 million of miles, and it takes about 26 days to revolve on its axis. This means that its revolution is at the rate of 4,000 miles per hour. Picture that in your mind's eye if you can. Were there no sun, it would be absolutely impossible for life of any sort to exist on this earth or on any other planet which this sun heats. Incidentally, you might remember here that one of these planets, Mercury, is 40 million miles from the sun, and this is the nearest of these planets. The furthest away is Neptune, whose distance from the sun is only 3,000 million miles. That's all. This puts Neptune 70 times further away from the sun than Mercury. It only takes Mercury 3 months to make a trip around the sun. It takes Neptune 160 years to make his little trip around the sun. These 8 planets, which form our immediate planetary sphere, are divided into 2 groups of 4 each. There is an inner group and an outer group. The inner group is by far the smaller of the 2 groups. In between these groups, we have galaxies of asteroids. These asteroids are about 3 times as far from the sun as the Earth is. Then still comprising a part of our solar system is another solar system of moons or satellites, as we call them. And these revolve around some of the smaller planets. It is interesting to note here that roundness seems to be the one outstanding characteristic of nature. Everything in nature seems to either be round or go around. For those who might think that this Earth with its planetary system is all of the eternal scheme of things, I might say that, with the exception of Mercury and Venus, every one of these 8 planets has its own solar system. We call them the Martian system, the Jovian system, the Saturnian system, comprising Saturn and Saturn's rings and satellites. Then we run into another class of celestial visitor known as comets. These fellows are very eccentric gentlemen, and their orbits are very eccentric orbits. We can only see them as they approach the sun. Some few years ago, I received a call from a gentleman in Tucson, Arizona, where I was living at the time, inviting me to visit the observatory that evening after dark. I was happy to do so and shall never forget the sight that I saw. It gave me an understanding of God that I had never had before. I saw something of his magnitude, something of his power, and as I left that university building, I felt serenely safe in trusting my whole life into the hands of such a God law, for that is what it is in reality. It never was a personality, and it never can be a personality. You cannot compass such creations in terms of personality. They are too big. At any rate, stepping to the objection of the huge telescope, Dr. Douglas directed my view to a certain part of the field of vision, asking me if I saw there a tiny pinhead of light. I saw it and advised him to that effect. Do you know what that is? The good astronomer asked me. I replied in the negative, whereat he informed me that it was the planet. Why don't you just say I just said no? I replied in the negative, whereat he informed me that it was the planet Uranus. Well, then followed some interesting facts about Uranus. Sorry. Here I was looking through a piece of glass and was enabled to actually see a planet, the diameter of which is nearly 31,000 miles, and the volume of which is 60 times that of this Earth. The distance it was covering that night with my eyes was 782 million miles, and yet with the aid of the telescope I was able to actually see that distance. Think of that. Here I was looking at an object, just a big number. It's a really big number. Okay, and I was seeing it. In case any student questions the measurements of this distance or this accuracy, let me say that their distances are measured with scientific accuracy. The speed of them can also be measured accurately as it is necessary. Also, the speed with which they travel can be measured. Recently, a new planet was discovered, a hitherto unknown nebula existing at a greater distance from the Earth than in any heavenly body hereto recorded. The discovery was announced by the observatory on Mount Wilson, just outside of Los Angeles, California. The nebula was discovered on a photograph taken by the 100-inch reflector on that mountain. I have seen that instrument many times. This photograph, by the way, broke all records for long-distance photography known to science to date, for it fixed the distance of this nebula at 120 million light-years from the Earth. Think of that, my friend, 120 million light-years, not miles away, and still we can see it on a photographic plate. In addition to having photographed an object farther away from the Earth than any other object yet photographed, this telescope achieved a second honor in that it photographed an object that is traveling through space at a velocity of 60% greater than anything ever before measured by speed. All right, I'm going to stop it here, and we will continue with part 3. I didn't know this was going to be an astronomy lesson, but we're going to keep going. That's all I got. Okay. Goodbye.